right, we're now being joined by a great son of Igboland in his own right, Dr. Chris Asoluka, for some introspection on the lives and times of those who have departed, as well as a bit of focus on the newly approved Southeast Development Commission. Good morning, Doctor. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you indeed. And do have our condolences on the passing of at least two great Igbo sons, Dr. Iwuanyanwu and, of course, Senator, his name, Iwuanyanwu, Senator Iwuanyanwu in London. Our condolences. But I'd like you to speak to what Chief Iwuanyanwu represented. Yes, he was a President General of the Ohaneze Ndigbo. He honored us on these platforms on a number of occasions, speaking about important subjects that affected Nigeria, that affected Igboland, that affected his own interest. I'd like you to paint for us the type of man that he was and the best way that you think that Chief Iwuanyanwu should be remembered.
Thank you, Steve. Just within a month, you mentioned two names. I'll add a third name. And one band holds the three of them together. Ferdinand Agu, Chief Iwuanyanwu, then Senator Iwuanyanwu. These are the foremost pro-Nigerian advocates from the Southeast. The common trait they have, these were men of vision, men of courage, who would come out to speak their minds. They believed in Nigeria, whether it's Ferdinand Agu, who perhaps refocused the Nigerian maritime policy, or Iwuanyanwu, who as a young man saw the energy problem in Nigeria and went into capital oil. Or you talk of Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu Aheji Agamba Ndigbo. I don't know how to describe him. Apparently, I have been in the same shoes, either politically or in terms of his largeness of heart and in terms of his thought process. Chief Iwuanyanwu was more than a man. The only person who comes to mind easily is Chief M.K.O. Abiola. Here was a man, Chief Iwuanyanwu, who never would be bothered with where you come from. Recall that in his champion newspaper, Chief Henry Odokumaya was the editor-in-chief for many years. And his director of finance was, I think, Funsho or so, for many years. When you come to his airline, Oriental, you wouldn't describe Oriental without Kunde. He held that airline together. And when he even dabbled into politics, the likes of Manto and the rest came into prominence because of the auspices provided by Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu. Iwuanyanwu was a man who perhaps the Dangotes of this age would have copied. If there was any gap within his environment, within the Nigerian space, Iwuanyanwu was up to it. He would come with a vision, he would come with a strategy, and he was a man full of action. As large as he was, as large as his heart was, he was one guy I knew who would put his money where his mouth is. Talk of Iwuanyanwu National, which was an African phenomenon in football. You talk of Champion, you talk of Oriental, you talk of even as little or basic as bakery in Imo, in Owerri, or even supermarket chain. Marjorie Supermarket was one of the first supermarket chains in Owerri. So it's very difficult to describe Chief Iwuanyanwu. He stood like that proverbial elephant 6 blind men visited. Depending on the side you touch, your description or perspective would follow. Iwuanyanwu was a philosopher. That people didn't know. Iwuanyanwu was a nationalist. Iwuanyanwu was a first class, like Chief M.K.O. Abiola, a philanthropist. He never would hear you cry twice. Our paths crossed when I was running for House of Reps, and I represented Owerri Federal Constituency, and he followed my track and reached out and said he would like us to have a talk, and we did. And after that, he said, Chris, you know what? I wouldn't want us to be in different camps. And he lived true to his words thereafter. So when you talk about Godfather, he was a silent godfather to many political icons in the Southeast. So maybe when you prompt me with questions, I'll come in.
Well, thank you very much for that well-rounded review of your kingsmen. Both of them have been, tributes have been paid by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as well as your governor, Asoluka. But we'd also like for you to shine light on the newly approved Southeast Development Commission. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, who actually sponsored the bill, has praised Tinubu for the establishment of the commission. He says that it is a significant step towards healing wounds left by the civil war and addressing the region's special needs. We know that money from that fund will go into, reconstructing the Southeast geopolitical zone. We also know that that initiative was proposed in 1970 under the Gowon administration. Benjamin Kalu had also said that since then it has, always been in words, and no president has, had the courage to take action until now. Now, I'd like for you to help us, walk us through that whole initiative and how stakeholders can ensure that, actions or proposed by the commission or committee will not just end up as just being words.
Thank you, Oji. From the theoretical side, you give it to President Tinubu. He does not sleep on decisions. The idea of these zonal or sub-regional commissions could be a way of providing an opportunity for basic issues tied around the states within the zone to be given primacy. And it's in line with the new approach. As a political economist, there's something we call TALD, T-A-L-D. That is nothing more than a new trend that drives towards local development. We call it territorial approach to local development, which acknowledges that a country as huge as Nigeria would not have a uniformly problematic issue at the same time. Southeast could have their peculiar needs. Northeast would, Northwest would. So if you tie development and progress around this hub, you are more likely to have an intervention faster than FEMA when the road goes bad between Onitsha and Owerri. But we know that it's been saddled with the Nigerian issue of being politicized. We hope that President Tinubu would put, would you say, round pegs in round hole, because these development agencies could become critical for direct intervention. Like you said, Oji, since 1970, the idea was muted. Maybe it could have been part of the reasons why we had Ohanaeze Ndigbo, because it was an acknowledgement that after the war, we faced certain basic pressing needs, which the other parts of Nigeria may not have had. So if there was this kind of relevance and saliency given to peculiar needs, it could have bridged the gap of alienation, and it's better late than never. And we say the management could become more useful if they are properly situated.
Fantastic.
All right, then I'd like to come in here just to, first off, of course, again, accept our condolences. But I'd like to ask, in what ways you believe the passing of, Chief Iwuanyanwu, would affect the current socio-political landscape of the Southeast, especially in relation to, the unsuccessful plea for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. I'd like us to just talk about this. There's been that call again for his release following his passing. Do you think that this will, in fact, reignite this conversation once again?
Thank you very much. His passage couldn't have come at a more difficult time because Chief Iwuanyanwu was a great bridge builder and he was not afraid to stand for any position he believed in. And like you hinted, perhaps in the spirit of rapprochement, issue of Nnamdi Kanu should be revisited, and so that the inclusiveness would be perceived to be total. In terms of honoring Chief Iwuanyanwu, I think it's become a pattern to situate projects or monuments around the enclave of the, but Iwuanyanwu stood beyond Southeast. So honoring him, things that are more national would be more befitting. So I agree with you that it could open a new page for rapprochement, and the president is kindly invited to extend that spirit of inclusion. And the younger people who did not fight the war wouldn't understand why the Chief Iwuanyanwu of this world, who was a captain during the Nigerian Civil War, a very brave soldier, turned around to find merit in the bigger space called Nigeria. America wouldn't have been that great if America wasn't that big. So in spite of the difficulties, a bigger Nigeria is better than the smaller, efficient parts of Nigeria. So you're right. It could be an opportunity for rapprochement.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, the very sad passing of Dr. Ifeanyi Ubah at the age of 52 reminds us that the average life expectancy for a Nigerian man is actually 62 years old. It's improved from 52 years in 2000 to now 62 years old. And beyond that, Dr. Ifeanyi Ubah was also a senator from the Southeast. And Chief Iwuanyanwu, who has passed, also ran for president 3 times. I recently had an interview with former Senate President Wabara, who said that he does not think he will see a president from the Southeast in his lifetime. Do you agree with that? Do you think that the loss of these leaders from Igbo land, and without us having an Igbo president in their lifetime, do you think that it spells doom for the future, or do you think that there's still hope that the Southeast will get its turn at the center?
Yeah, there are 2 schools of thought. There's some think that an Igbo president would assuage or would bring a psychological healing, which is the point most people miss. They think that presidency will mean to be favored in terms of appointment or infrastructure. But there is this psychological high that there is no, call it glass ceiling, because nature abhors kind of limitation in space, which is why some people in prison will revolt because they are confined to some definite space, and not that people outside the prison are essentially better off. So to place a glass ceiling is a bad thing. So the psychological healing is very, very important. In terms of health, yes, the systemic difficulty we are having, health, education, these areas should be very, very, uppermost in our consideration. For Ifeanyi Ubah to die at 52, Ferdinand Ago to die at 64, it's only Iwuanyanwu who died at 82, but like Mandela, we were reluctant to let him go in spite of his age. So, and, in terms of my friend Senator Adolf Wabara, that was to press perhaps the urgency and the need for that kind of consideration to be given. Whether he was saying that factually or not, I wouldn't know because I've not discussed with him. But the psychological part of the Igbo agitation should be looked into.
All right, Doctor, I'd like you to also take a look at the one more aspect that Chief Iwuanyanwu believed in, and that was the sort of sincere handshake with the West, which, of course, as you remember, led to the coinage of Ohanifere, Ohaneze, and Afenifere in the Southwest. A number of times he had to make strong statements about the safety and the well-being of the Igbos in other parts of the country outside of the Southeast, particularly in Lagos State. We have a major issue coming up in Nigeria on the 1st of August if the protest proceeds as has been insinuated. I know that if Chief Iwuanyanwu were to be alive, he would have words of advice, words of caution to all and sundry. What would be your thoughts as to how the Ndigbo should relate to the rumors of protests starting on the 1st of August, and especially the well-being, and if you like, I use that word carefully, safety of the Igbos in Lagos State? We're hearing of the likelihood of the cult of the Bull Roarer that we know as Oro in the Yoruba land, the likelihood of it being unleashed again like it happened during the elections, even though nobody is ascertain that actually came either from the government or from the traditional institutions. We know, of course, what that means. If Oro has to come out during the day, it means that there will be serious restrictions of movement. What are your thoughts generally, and what will be your advice to those who are desperately asking for protests to happen?
Well, constitutionally, it's been entrenched that every citizen has a right to protest. But the worrisome part is what follows after the protest, or the management of the protest. That has been always the elephant in the room. And for Chief Iwuanyanwu, yes, he wasn't a pacifist, so to speak, but he was grown up enough and maybe imbued with some wisdom and courage to stand up and say, look, there are other options. Like Chimamanda would say, the evil of a single story it seems to have taken us. We think of single solution. And there are two sides, at least, to any issue. And if we want to be heard, the president should look at certain other mechanism to listening to the people speak. They shouldn't resort to violence or very violent protests in order to be heard. So in terms of what Iwuanyanwu would have said, yes, I can easily say, knowing him as I do, that he would discourage very violent protests. In terms of Ohanifere, people seem to misunderstand the philosophy of these sociocultural group. They are not irredentists of sorts, which people label them to be. I was privileged to have been a Vice President General of Ohaneze. So I would tell you that it could perhaps be the easiest mechanism to ventilate what could be a kind of feeling amongst a certain group. And Ohanifere was to shake hands across the Niger. So Iwuanyanwu also did with the North. In fact, some people even thought that he was closer to the North than to any other part. So in terms of the protests, I would urge the president to explore some other reach out mechanism in order to constantly and continually know where the shoe is pinching in order to, I know it's difficult to solve all the problems at the same time, especially when you have a systemic rot. But in terms of prioritization and attention and the empathy, because people demand empathy and compassion. These are the more critical things. And the youth are angry, but the youth should also know that burning will not give them some of the reliefs they want, but show that you are listening to them And with time, some of these problems would be solved. I can tell you for sure that Iwuanyanwu wouldn't have gone for a violent protest.
Well said. Thank you, sir. Well, as we begin to wrap up, I know that the death of these two Anambra greats have no doubt left, the people of the Southeast in utter shock, especially that of Senator Iwuanyanwu, who was just 52. He was said to have, traveled to London for his son's graduation. And we have seen a video of his alleged last moments, singing with his family, on the streets of London. Would like for you to share your fondest moments with him, as well as that of Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu.
Oji, if you permit me, two of them are standing, Ferdinand Agu and Iwuanyanwu. It's a pity Ferdinand never occupied a very visible political post, but in terms of being a true patriot, he was a patriot and one of the most brilliant minds I've come across. For Senator Iwuanyanwu, he had vision, he had courage, he had strategy, and he was full of action. So that defined his success. I remember in 2004 or 5, we went to Singapore. There was a shipping conference, and he wanted to acquire a vessel. And he came and cornered me and wanted to know more and more about it. I saw him as a very curious mind. And after that meet, and I was not surprised that he was a rich man, because his ideas flowed endlessly, and his energy could fill any space, even a stadium, and his, passion for anything he believed in. Iwuanyanwu, he was a character, and we urge God to grant 3 of them may they rest in peace. And Nigeria has lost about the 3 foremost patriots, nationalists from Southeast. And for Ferdinand Agu, we couldn't have needed a man like Ferdinand. And for Chief Iwuanyanwu, he remains a colossus, not in past tense, in present tense. And his memory will linger on forever, for a long time to come. And I use this opportunity to condole with his wife, Lady Iwuanyanwu, and with the children. We say, may God grant them, the fortitude to bear this very huge loss. And for Ndibo, please, it's one too many. Iwuanyanwu succeeded Professor Biozo, and both of them died. It's the first time it has happened that we are losing 2 president general. At some point, it reminds one of the Ibadan monarchy, or could it be based on age that they go one after the other? And we use this opportunity to send our condolences to the leadership of Ohanaeze, to the governors of Southeast, to President Tinubu, because he lost an ally. Iwuanyanwu was a man whose counsel could improve not just Southeast, but the Nigerian space.
All right, thank you so very much, Dr. Chris Asoluka. We really have to go now, but just in 1 second, I don't know if this is something that you'll be willing to answer. Will you be interested in any way to succeed Chief Iwuanyanwu as the President General of the Ohanaeze Ndigbo, if it's offered to you?
No. We have a structure. Anambra will produce the next president. Sorry, I think Abia. It's alphabetical. Okay. Abia will produce the... Sorry, I'm mistaken again. Because there's a little bit cleanup to do. Rivers, in terms of alphabetical order, should produce the next Ohanaeze General or Abia.
All right.
So Imo, our time will run up in January, and it's too short a time for anybody to do that. So I think Ambassador Okemuche with the Vice President General, and sorry again, the Deputy President General who would have stepped in, I think he passed. Wow. But it's about 3-4 months they can cope before the baton will swing to another state.
All right. So thank you indeed, Dr. Asoluka, for joining us on The Morning Show today.